Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Let's see what's on the docket today. First, the police conclude an investigation into the botched Gabby Petito interaction back in Utah. Prince Andrew, day 2. That's right, it got worse. Third, Elizabeth Holmes. Is this fair or a little bit of white privilege? Andrew Cuomo. He wants his $5.1 million and you can't make him give it back. A case in Illinois that may upset some people and maybe not some others. Military or jail? Ooh, I thought we stopped doing that a long time ago. A real life story about the orange is the new black. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. It is Thursday, January 13th, 2022. You know the drill. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that little like button, and let's kick the butt of those little Google demonetizing people over there that don't like that we use certain words when we're talking about crime. That's right. So instead of saying certain words from here on out, I guess we're going to have to do this. That's right. And when we talk about this, I'll just have to hold up the sign. And when I talk about this guy, that's right, we'll just hold up the sign. That way, the little algorithms over there at Google, that's right, they won't get flagged, and, well, we'll still be able to have this conversation. And maybe Scott will be able to make a little bit of money on this versus the money-losing enterprise that he is involved in at this point in time. All right, now let's get to it today. Gabby Petito, remember that tragic case, sad case? Well, an independent investigator recommended that the 2 officers who responded to the domestic violence call in Moab, Utah last year involving Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie should be put on probation for how they handled the encounter. Now, body cam footage, as you may recall, was released from officers Eric Pratt and Daniel Robbins when the police responded to a call in which a witness said he saw the couple involved in a domestic dispute back on August 12th of 2021. Now, after a lengthy conversation with the couple, the officer said that Petito must be booked in jail since she was considered the primary aggressor when she admitted to striking her fiancé first. Recall that? Now, the officers eventually agreed to not charge Petito, and the couple agreed to spend the night apart. Now, in the 102-page independent investigative report, Captain Brandon Ratcliffe with the Price City Police Department said the officers neglected their duty by failing to press any charges. Ratcliffe also noted that there appears to be only sufficient evidence to charge Petito in this matter, not Laundrie. Now, Ratcliffe said he could not speculate on whether different actions by the officers in August could have prevented Petito's death. Now, in response to Petito's death, the city of Moab did not address any discipline for the 2 officers. They did say that they intend to implement the report's recommendations on and new policies for the police department include domestic violence training and legal training for officers. Now, in an interview for the investigation, Officer Pratt said that he accepts that he may have made mistakes during the stop and is still haunted by Gabby Petito's death. Ratcliffe said in the investigation that at the time neither officer knew their actions were wrong and that they believe they made the right decision given the circumstances. Now, Ratcliffe added that although the mistakes the officers made were not intentional, they were serious. In the end, his report faulted the officers for not obtaining a statement from the person who initially called 911 for misinterpreting Utah's domestic assault statute and for failing to follow up with Petito when she reported that Laundrie had struck her as well. Mr. Ratcliffe recommended that the officers, Eric Pratt and Daniel Robbins, be placed on probation and under further training on report writing and domestic and violence investigation. He also suggested that the department itself review its report approval process and implement a policy requiring photographs of all injuries reported by both suspects and the victims. Now, when this case first came out, boy, I tell you, it was a tough call. First, you have a situation where Gabby Petito is saying that I was the initial aggressor. I hit Brian Laundrie. By the laws in most states, she should have been arrested. And then you have police officers that are looking at the totality of the circumstances based upon what they know, and they're trying to implement community policing, trying not to take people to jail when they don't necessarily have to be. Would it have changed the way Gabby Petito passed, or was the victim of, that's right, we don't know. So it's easy to look hindsight 2020. I've got mixed feelings about it. It always seems like they arrest my client at the easiest whim when the police are called. And when the police try to exercise some of their judgment, well, it turns out if they get it wrong, they're in trouble for that. Kind of goes back to the whole thing we were talking about yesterday that got everybody fired up. At what point do we stop saying somebody needs to be held accountable for the actions of another person, right? Let me know what you think. Well, one thing I sure know I am happy about, and that's that I am not Prince Andrew. Granted, he had to sell his $23 million Swiss chalet to pay for legal fees. Well, things just got a little worse. Prince Andrew has officially been stripped of his military roles, royal patronage, and his HRH, his Royal Highness, by the Queen. Ouch. That's right. Ouch. When the Queen Mother and your mom say enough is enough, that's right. No TMM going on over there anymore. She has had enough. So the Queen Mother, the Queen, said that he will have to face his sexual allegations as a private citizen. This comes a day after a judge rejected the prince's bid to have his sexual assault case thrown out, leaving him facing the prospect of being cross-examined for 7 hours on camera with some, what could be perceived as embarrassing questions on everything from his sex life to descriptions of his private parts. Now, Andrew has been urged to settle out of court with his accuser, this Virginia Jeffrey, pronounced Jufrey, I guess, for the sake of his mother, who celebrates her platinum jubilee this year. But he could face difficulties given Miss Jeffrey is said to be pushing for her day in court. Of course she is. She is going to press this until he is so nervous and so scared to go up in court, and will cough up all of those $23 million from the Swiss chalet that he had to sell from all that hard work that he did of being a royal. Don't you just feel really sorry for the guy? Yeah, sure don't. Well, the palace also said that the Duke's military appointments were suspended after he stepped down from public duties in 2019. And prior to today, he still retained roles, including the position of Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, one of the oldest and most emblematic regiments in the British Army. More than 150 veterans joined forces to express their outrage, writing to the Queen to demand Andrew be removed from the honorary military positions. My goodness, I'd think to say Prince Andrew, Duke of Windsor, or whatever he is, guess what? You've been canceled. That's right. Seems like everybody that hung out with that guy, that's right, everyone that hung out with that guy really coming back to haunt him. Well, unless, of course, you're Bill Gates or former President Bill Clinton. No repercussions there. Just saying. All right, Elizabeth Holmes. You remember her? Found guilty of wire fraud for $340 million of wire fraud. Well, guess what? She doesn't get to be remanded until her sentencing date. Now, the disgraced former Theranos boss won't be sentenced for fraud until September, until her ex and former COO Sunny Balwani is tried on the same charges. Now, in a motion filed Tuesday, which was endorsed by both the prosecution and defense attorneys, they proposed that the 37-year-old Holmes sentencing date be set for September 12th. Balwani's trial is set to begin next month. Prosecutors and defense attorneys have signaled that they would rather prepare to sentence Holmes and Balwani if he is convicted at the same time. So now Holmes is free on a $500,000 bond awaiting her sentence. Now, Holmes was found guilty of swindling, I was wrong, $945 million and lying about her company's groundbreaking blood testing technology, and is facing up to 20 years in prison. Now, we did an analysis of that based on the federal sentencing guidelines a couple weeks ago. And let's face it, I don't think she's going to get 20 years, at least not under the guidelines. Now, Holmes is wearing an electronic monitoring device, and last week or so, she was seen smiling as she took a stroll through the neighborhood with her boyfriend, Billy Evans, on his $135 million California estate. Now, during Holmes' trial, her attorney painted Sunny Balwani as a master manipulator who abused and controlled her. And during her trial in November, Ms. Holmes alleged that she was the victim of a decade-long abusive relationship with Balwani, who, when she testified, had been secretly controlling her diet, her friendships, and more, while claiming it would help her succeed in the business world. Now, Balwani, of course, has denied all the allegations, and that's why he is going to trial starting next month, basically for the same charges as Holmes. Now, I've been in federal court quite a bit lately. And normally what happens when a client is convicted, particularly after trial, their bond is revoked. Now, I get it. It's just a white-collar crime, and but she's still got a lot of money. Her husband's got a lot of money. She could flee the country if she decides that probably 12 to 15 years that she's probably going to get sentenced to is a little more than she wants to do, and jet off. Now, it'd make more sense to do that before she was convicted. But just saying, I think there seems to be a trend that if you are, let's just say, white in federal court, you get to remain at liberty until sentencing, whereas if you're not white, you usually get remanded. Maybe that's just completely anecdotal experience on my part, but just calling the way I see it. Next, another disgraced Andrew. That's right, Andrew Cuomo. He published his book titled American Crisis, Leadership Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic. I really got to pick that book up. I'm really curious to see how he handled that whole nursing home situation in New York. I hear it was absolutely wonderful. Anyway, the New York State Assembly Judiciary Committee found that during their impeachment investigation that in writing the book, Andrew Cuomo, the other disgraced Andrew, violated state guidelines requiring that no state property or personnel be used for activities associated with the book. And the ex-New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, took the counteroffensive on Wednesday against an ethics panel for ordering him to repay his $5.1 million from his book. The New York State Joint Commission on Public Ethics, also known as JCOPE, later reached the same finding by a 12-1 ruling of its board on December 14th, giving him 30 days to relinquish his earnings. Just before what would have been the original deadline, Cuomo responded with a letter from his attorney, Jim McGuire, demanding that the committee's chair, Jose Nieves, preserve evidence to be used in a future legal action. Cuomo's claims that the JCOPE's order violates his right of due process under the United States Constitution, allegedly exposing the organization and its commission to liability under Section 42 United States Code 1983, the statute governing deprivation of civil rights. Now, JCOPE tried and failed twice to revoke the conditional approval for Cuomo to write his book. McGuire says, describing those developments as an ever-increasing evidence of its bias and prejudice of the fact that the law related to the propriety of the governor's conduct in connection with the book. McGuire demanded that the commissioner preserve records on discussions, deliberations, and votes on efforts to revoke the conditional approval letter and order repayment of the book's proceeds. The governor also wants to learn more about JCOPE's discussions with Cuomo's former special counsel, Judith Mogul, who insisted in a memo on October 19th that she informed the ethics panel that Cuomo would not use state resources on his book. Even prior to contacting JCOPE, he allegedly confirmed that no state resources would be used in writing the book, and that any staff who were assisting the governor of the book would do so on their own time, either on evenings or weekends. Yeah, sure. All right, this goes to the bigger issue, ladies and gentlemen. Like, if you're writing books while you are in public office, you should do it for free, or all proceeds should go to your employer, the state, the people at that time. It's kind of like if you're, trading, or your husband's trading stocks based upon inside information that you receive as a member of Congress, which would be completely illegal for you and me, but unless, of course, you are a member of Congress, it's all okay. Which comes back to my point. A public servant should be in office for a limited amount of time. Why is that? Well, because they should have to go back to their real job in the real life. And if you look at most of these career politicians, most of them have never accomplished anything in their life, never really had a job other than trying to get elected. And then when they go into office, they usually don't have more than 2 nickels to rub together in their bank account. But yet, after spending a lifetime in public office, they are multi-millionaires. Now, in anything other than the free market system where you're actually engaging in it, if you're getting rich by not engaging in the free market system, guess what? It's called graft. It's called corruption, okay? Politicians that get rich in office is per se corruption. They have their salaries, which is not bad. I think people in the House and Senate make, I think, $160, $180 a year. And they're always complaining that it's just not enough to scrape by when you're supporting 2 households in your home state and back there in Washington, D.C. Well, they shouldn't make a penny while they're in office. Put it all in the blind trust. Judges can't hear cases where they have a financial interest in a case, including that of their spouses. I truly believe you gotta get the criminals out of politics. The only way you take the criminals out of politics is you gotta get rid of the money, okay? If these people can't make any money, they're not gonna be there. They're gonna go down to some street corners and start playing, hide the little ball under the peanut kind of thing, because most of them, that's the best they can do, all right? Cuomo, just give the money back, man. You already had a job. If you were working at a company and you did something above and beyond while you were working for the company, it's theirs. It's the state's money. Give the money back. I got it. Maybe even better idea, Governor Cuomo. Maybe you could donate that money to, victims of sexual assault. Oh, we can't say that word. Victims of, that. Yeah. I'm sure there's some nonprofits that could use $5.1 million. Just saying. All right. Let's take a listen to this next story. It's a case in Illinois. It'll either upset you or, well, maybe it won't, but I think it'll probably upset most. And then we'll talk about it. So an Illinois judge has reversed his own decision to convict a teen accused of a 16-year-old girl in May to avoid giving him the mandatory sentence of 4 years in prison. Now, Judge Robert Adrian found teenager Drew Clinton, 18, guilty of Cameron Vaughn, now 16, at a graduation party at a different teenager's house in Quincy, Illinois last May. Cameron, who waived her right to anonymity, says she passed out drunk in the basement and woke up to find Drew while holding a pillow over her face. Now, Drew has spent 5 months in the county jail awaiting sentencing. He had done a trial to the court. And at the January sentencing hearing, his attorney begged the judge to overturn his guilty verdict or to at very least ignore the state's mandatory minimum sentence of 4 years in prison. Now, Judge Adrian said that the boy had served plenty of time behind bars and that while he couldn't sentence him to time served, he could overturn the verdict and set him free. Needless to say, Cameron Vaughn, not happy, said that the judge's decision to not sentence Clinton after her feeling like she spoke out for nothing at the sentencing, Judge Adrian blamed the entire case on the adults at the party who allowed teenagers to drink alcohol and swim in their pool in their underwear. This is what happens when parents do not exercise their parental responsibilities. We have adults having parties for teenagers, and they allow co-eds and females, people to swim in their underwear in their swimming pool. They allow 16-year-olds to bring liquor to a party. They provided liquor to underage people, and you wonder how these things happen. Now, on Facebook, Vaughn wrote, "The Judge Adrian did was worse than what Clinton allegedly did." She also said that while Drew had been set free, she doesn't want other victims to be discouraged from speaking up. Now, this will probably fire up a lot of people, this story. And how many times have I said it? That's right. Scott, you're old curmudgeon. Scott, why are you being such a fuddy-duddy by saying parents shouldn't provide alcohol to minors? Scott, what decade are you living in? Well, the decade where bad things happen, where somebody dies, people have to go to jail. Even parents could get charged. Why these parents weren't charged for contributing to delinquency of a minor, I'm not exactly sure why. And think about it. all of these people that say every kid that's involved in a school shooting, that the parents should be charged because they knew or should have known. But yet none of these parents are charged whatsoever. So it clearly makes it look like it's political in some regards, no doubt. I'm not sure this judge made the right decision. It was a trial to the court. The judge concluded beyond a reasonable doubt that that young man did a bad thing. That's right. Hold up the stick. Yep. Did that to that young girl. If that judge doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to impose the 4-year sentence, mandatory prison sentence, you know what? You need to leave the bench. But to overrule it and say 5 months in custody is enough, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do either. But really what it goes to is, where does it stop, right? Our legal system has always been of the fundamental mindset that you charge people, and the government has to charge the people that actually did the crime, and you have to be able to prove their mental state. Otherwise, it would never stop. One could say you could charge a village. That's right. Why stop at the parents? How about the liquor store that sold them the alcohol that went to the underage minors? Why stop there? How about all the parents to let the kids go over to the party? And why didn't those other kids stop when maybe they knew or should have known what was going on? Do you see, ladies and gentlemen? It's a never-ending snowball rolling down the hill. You can entangle everybody, but the person who should be charged was that young man who was accused of, and apparently the prosecution proved beyond a reasonable doubt to the judge, and then the judge didn't have the intestinal fortitude to go forward with the sentence. That judge should resign. And all those parents out there that thinks it's cool to be the friend of all of their teenage kids by providing alcohol and drugs at parties, don't say I didn't warn you. Okay? Who knows? Maybe someone will say you watched CrimeTalk one day and you were put on notice. So if you do that, be ready for the consequences. Let me know what you think in the comments. You outraged? Did the judge do the right thing? Or should he resign? All right. Next on the docket, I think we stopped doing this years and years ago. A judge in Kentucky ordered a kid by the name of Brandon Scott. He's 28, so he's not really a kid. And he was a former officer at the Franklin County Regional Jail who is accused of assaulting a female inmate. In some circles, we call that, for all those on the podcast, holding up stick. That's right. And he's accused of that too. He's given the option to either re-enlist in the United States military in the next 30 days or face a year's time in prison. Now, Price is accused, like I said, of holding up the stick of a female inmate back in 2019 after transporting her from the hospital. He was charged with felony third-degree sodomy in connection with that incident. But the charges were later reduced to a misdemeanor second-degree assault. The judge said if you don't enroll in 30 days, you can report to the Franklin County Regional Jail. According to Judge Thomas Wingate, he said during the sentencing hearing, "You're under the gun, young man. You got to do it." The judge added that he was getting a huge break considering the damage he's done and the money he has cost the county. Well, let me just take comment on that. The United States Army doesn't want this guy, okay? No military branch should want this guy. He was charged, and although he was only convicted of a misdemeanor, he's on probation, which means the military is not going to take him. So he means because he's not deployable anywhere. And frankly, I think he lacks the moral character, the moral fiber to be in the United States military. This judge is wrong. He just needs to tell that young man to show up to serve his prison sentence. He shouldn't get a break like that. The military is for honorable people, not people that are on their way to prison. And next, a little bit of the Orange is the New Black in real life. An assistant warden at a state correctional facility in Nebraska with nearly 2 decades of experience found herself behind bars just the other day after being accused of felony misconduct involving inappropriate relationships with an inmate. That's right. What do they call that? Holding up stick again. That's right. Sarah Nelson Torcelio was taken into custody on suspicion of unauthorized communication with a prisoner and sexual abuse of an inmate. Now, Torcelio, who began working in the state prison system more than 18 years ago back in 2003, had already resigned from her position as of Tuesday. The facility, which is known as the Lincoln Correctional Center, and the Diagnostic and Evaluation Center until earlier this year is geared towards providing assistance to inmates' various mental health issues. Torricello was booked at the Lancaster County Jail following her arrest. She was released from the facility on a personal recognizance bond after a Wednesday bond hearing. Prosecutors not yet formally charged Torricello of any crimes. She is scheduled to appear before a Lancaster County District Court judge on February 11th. I just don't get that, ladies and gentlemen. I've represented people in the jail that worked in the jail. So we're talking deputies over the years that have been accused of doing things to inmates, okay? Those inmates are in custody. That's considered bad. It's force. It's almost like, that's right, it is. That's right. And when they do that, first they're going to lose their job. They're going to get charged, and they're usually going to get charged with a sexual offense. And not to mention, they're going to get named in a lawsuit along with the county. That's right. And the county's going to pay lots and lots of money. It's simply not worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, what do all of these cases come down to? Sex, the opposite sex, drugs, and alcohol. And people cannot control impulse control. That's the word I'm looking for. Impulse control issues. That's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. They just can't resist, and it costs them their career and their livelihood. I just don't get it. All right, all that stuff on TV. People try to always say, when you watch CSI, how do they come up with these stories? They're so interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all real stuff. A lot of those writers, attorneys, police officers, they're writing about real life experiences that they see. All that stuff probably happened, just changing the names. It's all happened before. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to crimetalksearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. So police dispatchers received several calls reporting possible poisoning of individuals who were at the Tabor Community Center earlier for a card game in Tabor, South Dakota. Apparently, the group of senior citizens unknowingly consumed pot brownies that were brought to the community center by a 73-year-old woman who was unaware that her son had prepared the baked goods with THC butter. Now, Michael Coranda said he baked the brownies over the weekend from the marijuana products he got from his recent trip to Colorado. Of course he did. And his mother brought them to the community center card game unaware that the treats contained THC. Now, Mr. Coranda was arrested for possession of a controlled drug and was free on a $3,000 bond. So Mr. Coranda clearly giving drugs to little old people that are causing them to look like they're being poisoned, for God's sakes. Should we charge the mother too? She didn't know, but maybe she should have known. How do you not know your son's baking with THC butter, right? I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, you can just keep going down the list until they make everybody a criminal. There's usually one person that needs to be charged. Just another example in today's show. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Sorry, we have to hold up the sticks now. We'll probably be adding a few more of them because, well, that's the way it is. Google, YouTube has decided that you all just can't handle, your sensitive little selves can't handle when we discuss topics like this. And so I guess we'll just have to come up with a workaround. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.